Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's good to have you here on this rainy day. We were actually getting a little concerned in the T here with some lack of rain, but I think we've sort of overcome that in the last couple of weeks, so it's nice that we're getting some rain. So let me talk about, again, the COVID-19 pandemic. This has, as you know, as all of us have experienced, created numerous problems for Pennsylvanians. It's obviously a public health crisis, but it's also an economic, as we know, harsh economic crisis. So in order to help Pennsylvania's economy recover from the effects of COVID-19, it's really important that we support businesses that have been most directly affected in Pennsylvania. Especially, we think not only have they suffered from declining revenues and all the other dislocations that have come about because of the pandemic, but they've also taken on additional work and additional costs to keep their employees and their customers safe. They've done some really amazing things, businesses in Pennsylvania. These are necessary precautions, and business owners who put in place these mitigation efforts are really showing how much they care for their customers, for their employees, and for their communities, and this is really an important thing. Small businesses are typically at the heart of our communities. And in the years leading up to the pandemic, small businesses employed just under half of all Pennsylvania workers. Providing assistance to small businesses is a big help to our economy, almost 50% of the workforce. And to do what we can do to help them recover from the pandemic and the hardships caused by that pandemic are really important. But what I'm talking about here today is also aimed at helping families, the families who are directly affected, to help them get their breadwinners back to work and make sure that they're in a position to support their families. Back in June, I announced the COVID-19 Small Business Assistance Grant Program, and most of you were there at that announcement. That program is providing, as you'll recall, $225 million in grants to support small, Main Street, and historically disadvantaged businesses that were hurt by the COVID-19 pandemic. To date, $96 million have been allocated through the program, and that has helped 5,000 businesses. Talk to Grace. Where's Grace? Grace, you have not been helped yet, but that was not our fault, that was yours, right? Okay, so we're still working on getting this money out. But half of the money that has already gone out are to historically disadvantaged businesses. And these funds are helping small businesses across the Commonwealth, including right here in York County. However, we need to do more to help small businesses recover, and we need to do more to help strengthen Pennsylvania's economy. So several weeks ago, I called on the legislature to take immediate actions to help families and businesses. Actions that would do more to help Pennsylvanians get back to work and back on their feet. I called on the General Assembly to take immediate action to help Pennsylvania's economic recovery. And today, I'm simply renewing that call. I'm calling on the legislature to capitalize on the success of the COVID-19 Small Business Assistance Grant Program and direct $225 million additional dollars, new dollars, also from the CARES Act funding. Keep in mind we're sitting on a reserve of $1 billion that we've held in reserve to be able to do things as we get into the fall. So this would be to direct an additional $225 million, partially in forgivable loans and partially in grants to small businesses all across Pennsylvania. In addition, I'm calling on the legislature to direct another $100 million in forgivable loans and grants to the hospitality, leisure, and service industries, bars, restaurants, hotels. They've been really hammered by this, by this pandemic, and I think we need to do some things specifically here in Pennsylvania. I support the Federal Restaurants Act, but I think we need to do things here in Pennsylvania as well, in addition to that. So this helps restaurants, but also helps salons and barbershops. Funding for each of these efforts would come from the CARES Act dollars, again, that were kept in reserve so that we could do something in the fall. And it's also something that I think is if anything, as we move into the cold weather, even more important than it was before. We've seen which industries and which businesses have been hardest hit by this pandemic. We know now more than we did before, back when this started, and we have a better sense of where the needs lie. And I think what I'm talking about today, the General Assembly goes along with this. This will target the businesses that have been hardest hit. So now we must provide the support and funding that our businesses need to recover from this crisis. They recover, we all have a faster recovery. So thank you, and now I'm going to turn things over to Kevin Schreiber, former representative and now head of the Economic Development. What do you call this now? It used to be the Chamber of Commerce, Economic Development Authority, Corporation.
Economic Alliance.
Economic Alliance. Kevin Schreiber. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Governor. Bear with me. We always appreciate you driving a little bit down the road and coming back to your old stomping ground. So thank you, Governor, for having all of us here today and bringing us together for such an important cause. My name is Kevin Schreiber with the York County Economic Alliance. And unquestionably, in 2020, the word of the year is unprecedented. The impact of COVID-19 pandemic is felt in every aspect of our community, and I certainly and scarcely think that there's anyone who has not been impacted in some form or fashion here in this room and throughout York County. Governor Wolf, thank you, and thank you to you and to First Lady Frances Wolf and your entire administration. We are incredibly grateful for the work of your entire team and all that you've done to keep Pennsylvanians safe. And one need only look at the data across our country to assess that while I am certain every single one of the decisions that you've had to make has been incredibly difficult, Pennsylvania is in a much better place and a much better position as a result of the database decision-making system that you and the Commonwealth set forth. But the work continues, as the Governor noted, and we are by no stretch out of the woods, and we must still maintain every heightened precaution possible. And it should not go without saying that we are incredibly grateful for the work of your entire team. Throughout your office and across the state's departments, they have been incredibly responsive, communicative, and helpful as we have all attempted to do our best to navigate the course of this pandemic. I think we can be thankful for the swift action of Governor Wolf, Representative Carol Hill Evans, and other government officials to mobilize resources across state government and work with our federal government partners to advance support programs to assist those who have been economically impacted by COVID-19. It was in the earliest days of this pandemic, way back in March, feels like ages ago, when Governor Wolf launched the COVID Working Capital Access Program, or CWCA. Programs such as CWCA or the federal PPP program have been absolutely vital to the survival of our businesses and our nonprofit organizations. And the enhanced unemployment benefits that you have ushered in, unemployment protections, and extending those benefits to the gig economy and sole proprietors have all been vital and critical to driving aid to those in need. This year has brought profound new meaning to the phrase hindsight is 2020. And sadly, we know here in York County, based on our data, that over 70% of small businesses in York were unable to access programs like the PPP for a variety of reasons. And while that percent may vary across the state or our country, the challenge continues for our small businesses, and we know that this has disproportionately impacted persons of color. So to seek solutions to this problem, the state had allocated $225 million in small business support and drove those dollars out through the CDFI network with partners like Community First Fund. This novel approach is now a model that other states are holding up as a best practice, and one that locally in York we have attempted to emulate. Governor, your allocation of $40.5 million in CARES support to our county government has been a lifeline to our county that has proactively and creatively driven out to meet the needs of our county and its recovery. Together, working with our county commissioners, Commissioner Hoke is here, and partners such as Community First Fund, the Yoko Strong Restart Grant Program was allocated $14 million to support small businesses and nonprofit organizations with grants up to $35,000. And because the need is great, this program is designed to prioritize those funds to those who have, for instance, not received other funding programs, such as the PPP, or to businesses owned by persons of color or individuals of low to moderate income, or those that may be located in low to moderate income areas. Further, funding will be prioritized to those in vulnerable industry sectors such as restaurants, hospitality, tourism, personal care, or nonprofits servicing in child care, food and housing security, and rapid reemployment. And this is all to ensure as equitable and inclusive a recovery as possible, and with the direct outreach and technical assistance provided in Spanish and English by our team, by Carol's team, by Dan's team, by everyone here in this room, our team has been impactful, and absolutely the outreach is necessary to reach those most vulnerable. The application program closes tomorrow, Friday, September 11th at 11:59 p.m. Thank you, Governor, for indulging us this final commercial push to ensure that everyone is aware of this program. Our Commonwealth has acted statewide, and we have attempted to do so here in York County. And we know that some communities within our Commonwealth have felt the impact of COVID-19 more than others. And while this disease may not discriminate, its disproportionate impact among vulnerable, at-risk, impoverished individuals and our communities of color has been amplified by the inequities that existed before COVID-19. Unprecedented times truly call for unprecedented measures. The governor has put forth an aggressive agenda to protect the health of Pennsylvanians and expedite our economic recovery. The Economic Alliance and our team is quite literally boots on the ground here in York County, and I can attest from all of the outreach that we have done with our nonprofits and our small business owners that programs discussed today or those envisioned for the future are absolutely vital and critical to our Commonwealth's recovery. And we are encouraged by all that has continued to be done to date, and we remain optimistic about any means necessary going forward. We must all answer the call to help those most vulnerable and those most in need, and this is among the most noble tasks that we can be called to do, not merely as York Countyans or Pennsylvanians or Americans, but fellow human beings. So with that, I will gladly turn this podium over to the representative with easily the best legislative district in all of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, our 95th District State Representative, Carol Hill Evans.
Carol, who was your predecessor?
I know, right? Good afternoon, everyone. I am State Representative Carol Hill Evans, and I do represent the 95th District. Thank you, Governor, for being here this afternoon. Welcome back to York. It's always good to have you here, and especially with such good news. And so, on behalf of my fellow colleagues, we accept the responsibility that when we go back to session next week, we will pick up the mantle and we will do what we have to do. Put party lines aside so that we can do the right thing for the right reasons. And that is to make sure that our small businesses that have been so unbelievably disadvantaged as a result of COVID-19, not a week goes by that I don't hear from a restaurant owner, from small business people, whether it's hairstylists, whether it's barbers, that are in need of these funds. And so we must do what we have to do in the legislature in order to make sure that the funds go where they are most needed. And so with that said, I would like to welcome to the podium now Vice Chair, Vice Commissioner, Vice Chair of York County Commissioners, Doug Hogue. Thank you.
Thank you, and it's great to be here, and thanks for all of you for coming. Governor, it is an honor to be with you and your team today. Thanks for all that you have done for our Commonwealth and York County. We are proud to have a governor from York County, and we are grateful for all the actions that you've taken to help Pennsylvania manage this crisis. It has been an honor for me to serve as a York County Commissioner. This is challenging times. We know that we may not have all the answers. For everyone, life is a challenge, but we remain committed to listening, examining best practices, and working with our state, federal, and local governments to help those in need. I truly believe our Commonwealth and county government have done their best to contain the spread of the virus while determining the best course of action for recovery. The funding allocated by the Commonwealth for small business support has been critical to their survival. The CARES Act funding provided to our county has been critical. We are using these precious resources to maximize a positive impact in our community. We know that more support will be needed in the future. Support funding like CARES gives counties the ability to determine the best course of action to take. Governor, we look forward to working with you and your administration to get through this pandemic and return back to some normal to best serve the residents of York County and Pennsylvania. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce Dan Betancourt, CEO of Community First Fund.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here with you today. I'm Dan Betancourt from Community First Fund. First, I'm very honored to be here today to join the governor on his small business agenda here for the fall. And I'm also glad to be invited by my good friend, Kevin Schreiber at YCEA. Community First Fund represents a network of 17 CDFIs, and along with the governor and legislature, we initiated a $225 million small business grant program. It's already been announced in round one that we approved $100 million in grants for about 5,000. In 2 weeks, we're going to announce the second $100 million round for small businesses across Pennsylvania. And as Kevin said earlier, this state program is a model. We're working with approximately 10 counties across the state to use their CARE dollars. The whole idea of the state program was to sort of a very go-wide strategy, right? To sort of get some money in all the counties across the state. In fact, we funded grants to small businesses all across all 67 counties. And has been mentioned, about 2 weeks ago, the county commissioners and YCEA and Community First Fund launched the small business grant program here in York County. And we expect to help small businesses here in York County. I want to thank the county commissioners for their dedication. They could have used these monies for many purposes, but they wanted to get and help the most vulnerable businesses the same way the governor did across the state. So Commissioner Hoke and the other commissioners, I congratulate you on your amazing work. Governor, I'm glad that you are bringing this, or trying to bring this program back. One example, what we found in round one, we provided grants to 5,000 businesses and $100 million. And what they told us through the application process is that they lost $300 million just in the first 3 months of the pandemic. So if that's any indication of what the governor is asking for, $250 million, we know that there's over $1 billion of damage just in a 2 or 3 month period. And that's what we're trying to help out to overcome here in Pennsylvania, because we all know that our small businesses have to be has to have a chance to restart here in Pennsylvania. So again, Governor, thank you for your focus. Commissioners, thank you for your dedication. And Kevin, thank you for your partnership and bringing in Community First Fund. And now I want to introduce Grace Corte. She is a CPA here locally. She is housed in YCEA, as I understand. So Grace.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon. My name is Grace Corte, and I'm a certified public accountant and owner of Grace and Associates LLC, an accounting, tax, and small business consulting firm here in York. My office is actually next door and housed in the same building as Kevin's, the York County Economic Alliance. Thank you, Governor Wolf, for being in downtown today. And more importantly, thank you for the dedication, leadership you've shown to small business owners during this pandemic. Several years ago, actually, when I was a new resident in York, I had the privilege of serving on the board of directors at the York JCC with your lovely and kind wife, Frances, well before she was Pennsylvania's First Lady. I always say that she helped introduce so much of more of the York community to me, where I'm proud to call home. When you love the community in which you live and work, you care what happens here. I'm a small business owner who works daily with small businesses. I'm also a board member of the York Development Improvement District Authority for Downtown York, an organization that works closely with our merchants, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. We all know how challenging 2020 has been for many individuals and businesses. Small businesses, or what I tend to call micro business owners, have been greatly affected. Sadly, there are some that may never return after the pandemic. There are some who battle every day, every week, to stay afloat just a little bit longer. Every dollar that we can provide, every program created, provides lifeblood to our local economies, and in many cases are the small glimmers of hope throughout a year that has offered very few. Governor, thank you again for the steps you've taken for our small business communities across the Commonwealth. Your dedicated funds of $225 million is the kind of relief that small business owners really need. In those funds, $100 million is earmarked for historically disadvantaged businesses. And that's the leadership our governor has shown in this pandemic. The small businesses are hurting, yes, but Black, Indigenous, and people of color-owned businesses are often even more challenged to access resources. This is true under normal circumstances, and it's exponential under the pandemic. I see it every day. I saw it firsthand with the business clients that I have, and I felt it with my own business. While the federal PPP program has helped a lot of small business owners, the requirements of the PPP were such that mom and pop and micro businesses were left out. COVID-19 is real, its impact is real, and real relief is much needed. Many business owners were able to see some relief from the COVID-19 Working Capital Access Program, also another program from the state in the early days of the pandemic. Now, with the dedicated $225 million for small business assistance, you've offered access to a lot of the businesses that I know and help daily. And more of the mom and pop. As Kevin had mentioned, 70% of York County businesses were not able to access the federal program. And for that, I thank you again. I also commend our York County commissioners, Commissioner Doug, for launching the Yoko Strong Restart Fund via the CARES Act allocation granted, and the city government also the aid they provided to small businesses and nonprofit, with a priority consideration for minority-owned and historically disadvantaged businesses. These steps taken show the genuine and earnest commitment to small businesses across our Commonwealth and right here in York County. If not for these programs, many of my clients and other small businesses may not be able to stabilize and ride out the storm of the pandemic. The actions taken by you has saved life. You and your administration have undoubtedly saved lives. The support programs for these economically impacted will save our economy. I commend our state and county governments and all those on the front lines for all you've done and will continue to do to navigate these uncertain times. As a small business owner who works daily with small businesses, thank you to all of you present here today. Your work and daily contributions to our community over the course of this pandemic. Your work is not unnoticed, and it's very necessary. Thank you for the opportunity. And now I will introduce the governor back to the podium. Governor Wolf.
Is Blue Park Hall up on the second floor? Blue Park Hall? Yeah. Just on the second floor. So thanks, Grace. Let me just say it always is nice to come back to York. I was joking with Kevin about the Economic Alliance, and things change. I'm an old man, you're But I used to be chairman of the York County Chamber of Commerce, which is now part of the Economic Alliance. So that's something. And I also were in Blue Card Horn. Brian, this is your building, right? My wife used to actually worked with you back in the old days, right? Before you became a big shot. So it's always nice. I'm just kidding. It's always nice to be back. She really enjoyed her time working at Blue Card Horn. So, and again, Doug, Carol, and of course Grace, thank you for being here and helping me talk about this program, which I think is really important. So now any of us will be happy to take questions. Yes?
For purposes of summary, could you please indicate once again how much additional funding is now being made available by the state to small businesses?
So we hit 225 before. This is an additional 200 million plus another 100, so 300 million. Of the 100 million is targeted specifically for the hospitality industry, which includes hair salons and barbershops.
So how do you feel this will make a difference?
This 300 million in addition to, and we still have to spend about 125, 130 million dollars from the first round. So we're talking another 400 million dollars. Again, 300 of this is going to come out of the reserve that we still have. We got $3.6 billion in original CARES Act funding from Washington. We allocated or committed $2.6 billion, which left $1 billion in reserve, and this additional 300 would be coming out of that.
I have a question about the school sports bill
Yeah.
that you plan to veto. So based on how the chambers voted, there seems to be a veto-proof majority. So are you in talks right now with Democrats and or Republicans to see if they will kind of back off and let the veto go through?
I don't think there was a veto-proof majority, but the concern I have about that bill is that the schools already have the ability to decide whether they want to do sports or not. I think the thing that I'm concerned about in that bill is that this bill gives them unilateral authority to suspend the rules that we put into place, saying you can't have more than a certain number of people congregating in any one place. Now, that's willfully, I think, ignoring the reality that virus really likes it when people get together. And what I've been trying to do, and I think somewhat successfully, is to allow us to have some room so that people can stay safe and that we can actually pursue the real priorities we ought to have, which is to get people back in the classroom, get people back learning, to get educators back to the job of educating. And anything we do to distract from that, I think, is not going to be very helpful. This certainly raises all kinds of questions as to whether it's a good idea to sort of give a nod to anybody who says, well, I'm just going to ignore reality here. The virus is looking for people who congregate together, so I'm just going to make it easier for that virus to do its work.
I did want to point out that there indeed was a veto-proof majority in both chambers.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about that. I might be wrong, but I don't think it'll be overridden.
If the legislature would override your veto, would you contemplate issuing an order to cancel the fall sports season because you don't want them to have that authority?
I really haven't thought about that because I can't conceive of an overriding of this veto. This really doesn't make sense. Schools have the ability to decide whether they want. Each school district can decide. Each school board can decide whether they want to have sports or not. It seems to me anybody that says, and we're also going to give you the ability to override any public health issues unilaterally in your own estimation. You might have been talking to somebody at a party last night. On the basis of that, you're going to make a decision that's going to put a lot of people's lives in jeopardy. I'm not sure we want to give that unilateral responsibility or authority to anybody. So I think that virus is real. The virus is out there. I think we ought to recognize that, and I don't see why this bill adds anything to the safety, health, or economic or educational value of Pennsylvania.
Some people are saying that it just demonstrates a lack of trust in school officials' ability to make decisions that will ensure that spectators.
No, it's not. Again, the schools have the ability to decide whether they want to have sports. What all I'm saying here is the schools don't have the ability to unilaterally override the virus that is saying, bring people together. I'd love that. I can't override that virus. I don't know how school districts can override it, and yet this bill pretends that they can. They can't. It's a reality. The virus is going to do what it does. We ought to be doing, I think, everything we can to say, given this reality, the gravity's out there, the virus is out there, it'd be really nice if these things didn't exist, but they do. What's the world that we've been given? How are we going to live in that world?
Subject related to the grants here, if I could just ask, I've had some small businesses say to me, why did you set the floor at $5,000 for those grants? And I was wondering if you're contemplating lowering that floor for this next round of money, because they said even at $2,500 or $2,000 would be helpful and more businesses would benefit. So I just, Dan, I'm...
You want to answer?
Thank you, Governor. And that's the balancing act. You know, we put a cap at $1 million. You know, a lot of restaurants have more. And what we found is that state program was at 5. But the deeper we're into the recession, business owners are telling us that's not enough. And in fact, Kevin, you might want to just address that real quickly on why we went to 10 here locally. But we're hearing other things as well.
Yes, just to maybe add some context for the program that we created here in York County, trying to learn from lessons of the past, and as we've all evolved through this, we set the rate, it's up to $35,000, but applicants are eligible to apply for under $10,000, and I think we set it at, I think it's $500 is the minimum grant amount that they can apply for, all of which has to still be deemed as eligible costs under COVID. But we set that threshold much lower just because we know that for some of the micro businesses, we did not want them to feel concerned that they couldn't support $10,000. We really just want to get them however much funding is needed to remain sustainable.
Governor, it seems that you've been holding a lot of press conferences asking the legislature to do certain things and release certain funds in certain directions, and before you even get done with your press conference, they issue a statement that basically tells you to go pound sand, and then they pass legislation that you've been vetoing. Can you talk about the relationship between the two branches of government when, during a pandemic, you would think they'd be working together and it seems as acrimonious as it's ever been or non-cooperative? But can you give me your thoughts on the relationship?
Yeah, my thoughts on the relationship, obviously the other party is in the majority in both chambers of the General Assembly, but having said that, let's look back to what we do. Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation, a lot of talk, and I guess that, I mean, I've been in politics for, 5.5 years, so what do I know? But I guess that's what happens. But if you look at what's really happened, I mean, we got $3.6 billion from the federal government in the CARES Act. Together, the General Assembly and the administration, we have distributed, allocated, committed $2.6 billion of that. We have $1 billion left. I'm just sort of saying, let's keep doing what we've been doing. So, I mean, this sort of the conversation, the whatever, has been going on since this pandemic started, but we have really worked together. So I appreciate the relationship we have. Obviously, we're two different parties. We have some very big disagreements, but we've been able to get a lot of things done. And I think fundamentally, that's an important thing. Just one more here. I think you had it.
Thank you, Governor. If you could clarify your outdoor limit for sporting events, because many school districts are trying to put together their health and safety plans for fans to attend and the kids to attend and play the games. Can you clarify it? Is there any potential wiggle room on an outdoor limit for sporting events at the high school level and junior high and JV level of beyond 250 for parents that are celebrating their seniors this year that don't know how long their season's going to go? Could you clarify that?
Yeah. First of all, as I've said numerous times before, I'm open to conversation and have been, I think, very flexible, sometimes probably too flexible. I think we were one of 6 or 7 states to have a waiver program on business shutdowns, and a lot of people liked it, some people didn't. So I mean, but yeah, I'm open to all these things. But again, we have to keep coming back to the central reality is that whatever I say, whatever a school official says, whatever a PIAA official says, whatever a parent says about what you'd like to do, and my daughters were PIAA athletes as well at the Northeastern High School here in York County. I understand that. It's frustrating. But it's not me, it's not any of the Democrats, it's not any of the Republicans, it's not any politician, it's that virus. And I think we're all just trying to do our best to figure out how to keep that virus from infecting a lot of people and making us sick and getting through this as quickly as possible and getting back to the things we really need each other to do, and that is get to school and learn things. So as long as that virus is out there, as long as that virus is saying, let's bring people together, that would make me happier than anything. Let's figure out ways not to let that happen. So we have a 250 limit on people getting together, and we have talked and worked with folks to say, okay, let's figure. We worked with the Restaurant Association. They hated the 25%. It actually did some good things. Pennsylvania is one of the best states in the country in terms of what we're doing with the pandemic. But I understand it's a hardship. So, 21st, with the cold weather coming in, we're going to 50%. I've asked for $100 million of CARES Act funding to go directly to the hospitality industry, including restaurants, including bars and salons and barbershops. So there are things that we can do. I'm always willing to listen and I think respond as generously as I can, but all of us are constrained by the reality of that virus. One more.
Process and the timing of that. The Auditor General said he's continuing his audit.
Yeah,
Some
right.
people are questioning the timing of a campaign donation that both yourself and your wife made in June for the Auditor General running for Congress. Can you talk about that decision to make that donation
Yes.
and the timing of that?
Actually, before Kevin and before Carol were representing this district, Eugene DePasquale represented it. When did he first start running? The early 2000s?
Yeah, 2013.
Right. And Francis and I contributed to his campaign then. We've always contributed to his campaigns. I contributed to his campaign when he ran for Auditor General first time. Contributed the second time. And I'm contributing now. So this is what I've done. It would be really weird if I hadn't. I don't expect any special treatment from the Auditor General. This is just something I've always done. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.